SEMA. So, man, there's been so much SEMA news shaking loose lately, which happens. It starts to hit the news wire about now and ramps up until November when it happens. And by the way, we'll be there. And if you guys are following us over on the YouTube side, or if you're not, make sure you are subscribed, because we're going to have all kinds of content coming out during the SEMA show.
I got my notification. My credentials have been approved. I am officially in. Keith is waiting on his. We'll get our hotels locked in. Yes.
I haven't done it yet, but yeah. So
it's easy.
I think it was on the last podcast. We talked a little bit about Ford. We've got a video out on this as well, scaling back their presence at SEMA, and Honda also, although Honda's was never really huge. And
it's really unclear even if they will have any presence at all.
Right. Yeah. And so the Ford thing in itself is a big deal, but there could be a lot of reasons behind that. And that's one company. Now we find out that GM's doing the same thing. And now all of a sudden it becomes, what's going on with these auto manufacturers not wanting to go to SEMA?
Right.
So do you have the story up?
Yeah, so GM, basically, like we said, they're the latest manufacturer to decide against attending the upcoming SEMA show. They're going to sit it out. In a statement provided, GM offered little, really, of any justification for doing so. They basically said that they had made the decision not to participate in the 2022 SEMA show. The SEMA show has always inspired them, they say. Accessories and performance parts remain an important part of their business. They really don't get into the greater details of it. There is some speculation around why that may be occurring.
Oh, I want to go there.
But, and let's talk about that, because I have my own vision on that, and I think we touched on this the last time we podcasted when we learned about Ford and Honda scaling back or physically pulling out. There will be some presence of Ford there. However, they'll just have some displays on hand, and I think that's what you'll probably find with Honda as well. Do you guys realize, and I know you do, Keith, but let's ask our listeners out there, and please leave us a comment on any of this. Look, guys, it is an extremely costly expense to the bottom line of these manufacturers when they are bringing the size of their displays and their participation, including, to get all this stuff done. You've got crew after crew after crew. You've got display after display. You've got pressers that are going on. You're hosting people. You've got event booths where you're having stars come in and go and speakers. And so it's an extremely expensive event.
Technology. Remember the tablet?
Yeah.
We went to do the Hummer EV thing, and we got the shirts, and they had all the people with like tablets that were taking your information.
Right.
And I guess I won't get to do that this year for a free GM shirt. Although I just put your email address down. And,
That's okay. But you know what, though? That I think that what you're going to find, you may actually find a little bit more of that type of event going on, where it's just you walk up and see a display, and it's more of an interpretive type situation where they will have – look, technology is so far advanced. We learned a lot from COVID, the shutdown. SEMA did, PRI did, where you had the virtual shows. I think that I'm stepping back. These guys they're looking at the bigger picture and the future of the shows, and I'm not real sure that they're getting the return on their investment there. Okay, and that's part of it.
So let's peel that layer back just a little bit more. By the way, the way this basically was discovered, everybody, by somebody looking at the layout maps, because they have they're not planograms, but it's like a floor map, and it shows we use it too. We use it to look up where people are that we want to interview, and there was no GM listed. And at this point in the game, it's not necessarily a big deal that a company isn't yet listed, because some companies don't make the commitment until now or a little bit later. But GM or Ford, for those prime real estate spaces in the halls, they have to have it in by now.
Oh, they're a pencil in, man, at the end of the show last year.
And they're not on the list, right?
Yeah, they're not on the list.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. In the last 2 times that we've been to SEMA in person, how many Teslas have you seen?
absolutely.
SEMA?
Well, to be truthful, maybe one.
Okay, yeah.
Except for the ones that were driving us through the...
Yeah, you can't count the
excluding those guys.
Thing. Yeah,
excluding those,
Yeah.
I think one, and that was for display purposes only of a piece of equipment that
it
it was
wasn't
on.
there by Tesla. It was some other third party.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be careful here because some of these are our friends, partners that have certain stances in the industry. Jay and I we're kind of like sportscasters. We started this podcast talking about, sports that kind of don't have a favorite team. We just provide color commentary and analysis on the game, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, I
mean,
think so. Yeah,
if you show up and you play an amazing game, like the best sportscasters, the ones you don't like are the ones you can tell that have a favorite,
Right.
And I feel like there's some stuff going on here where people are starting to position and jockey for a stance that's either pro EV or anti EV. Mm-hmm. And you have a company like GM that's announced that they're going to be all electric by 2030 or 2035. Ford's basically doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. What a coincidence that they're scaling back their presence at SEMA. Now, SEMA did have an electrified presence, but it was not factory.
Right.
It was custom builders, right?
It was custom builders, yeah. PRI was the same way.
Except for the F100 that Ford brought out on stage and the Mach-E, right?
That's it.
What am I missing
then, of course,
here?
you had the Hummer EV that was there.
That's true.
At the GM booth.
Yeah.
But really kind of outside of that, you saw... You didn't see a huge presence of the electrification that's going on with those big manufacturers like that.
So I don't know the answer to this, and I'm truthfully just asking, and would love to hear comments from our watchers and viewers and listeners. Could this be, Jay, that these manufacturers are saying, we just don't feel like they're, this is an overland crowd, typically right now at SEMA.
Right.
And we just don't feel like that's a good fit for the direction that we're headed, which happens to be an electrified company.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you have to take into consideration that by going electric, you're automatically compliant when it comes to emissions, period, from the vehicle itself.
Right.
Now, I know we can have the argument that is it truly a green movement here, because we know what happens and what it takes to build these things. It's not a complete zero emissions overall from ground,
right?
From the well out to the
and
consumer.
regulations can change, especially if there's money being left on the table that the governments don't get their emissions testing. They could find other ways to do safety inspections and charge for it or whatever, right?
Exactly.
But for now,
and when you look at what Ford and GM, the commitment that they have made, and a lot of these other manufacturers are doing, some are slowly behind the scenes doing it. Honda's one of those ones that haven't just come right out and said, hey, we're going all electric. They kind of dragged their feet a little bit, and they've introduced one piece here and one piece there.
It's interesting because I was just thinking about them the other day as I was watching my wife mow the lawn. I was sitting there drinking a beer and
there's something to be said
I
for
helped.
that.
I was doing.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you're like, yeah.
But we have a Honda walk behind more. Okay,
right. Mm-hmm.
And Honda really, from the time that they became a major force to be reckoned with here in the United States, with that first Honda Civic. Remember that little one that kind of took off, in the early 80s, late 70s? And they got into basically just bulletproof small engines. Just smaller engines that were just crazy reliable.
The
right?
VTEC, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got...
Are you talking about small engines like lawn mowing type engines?
It runs the gamut. It's smaller vehicle engines, four-cylinder automobile
engines.
engines.
The VTEC series of engines are incredible.
Yes. When you think of Honda, you don't really think of V8 or V10 power. That's not their wheelhouse, right? They have figured out the smaller, I should say, not small, smaller engine game pretty well. I've got a Woods trail bike that's a Honda. I've got a CBR 1000 track bike that's a Honda. My son has owned Hondas. Our mower's a Honda. I mean, you know, we've owned Acuras. The Acura we had was a 4-cylinder, was plenty powerful, honestly. Right. And I feel like they maybe fell asleep at the wheel a little bit, that they took their eye off of further R&D, maybe during various economic difficult times.
Sure.
And while everybody else was working on EVs, Honda sort of just sat that one out.
For the U.S. market, I do believe if you go back and you do a little bit of research on it, and I know you have, and I have as well, and I'm speaking to you guys in the audience out there, that you'll see that Nissan and Toyota and Honda have all been quietly working on some of this stuff back in Japan. And, of course, Hyundai and Kia out of Korea, who have made an extremely huge impact in the EV world. Just it was like 6 EVs they've released, and they're going to be EV 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. They're all just amazing vehicles. I saw an Ioniq 5 the other day, by the way.
They're
when it drove by me, I'm looking at it and I'm going, now that's what an EV is supposed to sound and look like.
Yes.
That's future. That's future.
We've run across them, and both Sideshot and I have been like, wow, that's awesome.
That's a really cool ride.
They're not playing, man. They're
all over. They're actually all over the place out here now. It used to be all you saw was a bunch of Teslas here.
Yeah.
But now, man, there's a lot of Mach-E's, a lot of Ioniq 5s, a lot of, I've seen some Fiskars.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're Fiskars, man. That's what they have to be. I don't know of any other. I mean, they look like the Fisker to me, which we'll talk about.
Well,
Fisker
Heinrich
here.
is I mean, he was a designer for another company, and he's got that, eye-catching
look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the SEMA show, just to kind of wrap this up. I don't know the reasons behind this, but I can tell you that Jay and I will dig into this. So make sure that you are following us, everybody. Because the truth is going to come out here, and there will be more to be told about why some of these major players are backing out. We can only speculate for now, but we will ask the questions to as many people as we can. And as soon as we know, you'll know if you're subscribed. So make sure that you do so. By podcast, it's over on our website at partscounterguru.com. Click on the podcast links, and then, of course, over on YouTube. YouTube.com/partscountergurus. And that's where we sit. That's where we are. That's where we at.